Happy Thursday, everybody. Josh here with On the Wrong Lead. Another episode of Drankin' Champagne. I am joined, as always, by Mr. Andrew Champagne. Andrew, how are you doing, my friend?
Horse racing has had itself a heck of a bad year over the last 2 days. I say that it's so partially tongue in cheek, but there's been some stuff that has just not been great, and we're not going to spend too much time on it. But anytime a global force in breeding and owning passes away, as the Aga Khan did on Tuesday, and then a lawsuit breaks involving Santa Anita's longtime director of publicity, and then the decoupling bill gets out of the subcommittee. There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. We're going to talk about the fact that those problems exist on this show. But we've been a bit negative over the past couple of weeks, although to be fair, justifiably so. This show, I think, is all about hope, and nobody exemplifies that more than my co-host, who is wearing a Chicago Bears jacket, despite the perennial hopelessness of that organization. So, Josh, I just want to say I commend you for always getting back up on that horse every August, every September, thinking this is the year for the Bears.
You know what's funny is this year, I was like, this is definitely not the year. I was very negative. I did not believe that Caleb Williams was the quarterback of the future. I was very much in the keep Justin Fields camp. Now, my friend Ed, I would, I would jab him a little bit, something like, "Oh, I don't want to cry, baby," as a quarterback of my team, or whatever, and just jab him because he's this is it, right? He is just all in on Caleb Williams. But I mean, I think Ed's just the kind of guy who's like hopeful, right? So he's all in on whoever the quarterback the Bears draft, but he thinks this is the guy.
Okay.
And like he got, I mean, he laid into a couple of us when we were like, he's not playing that great. He's like, no. You guys don't know. You guys don't watch football. You guys don't understand. If you guys see this and think it's his fault. Now, there's more to it. From my standpoint, I was more of the opinion that we had a lame duck coach, and we have what I thought was a lame duck front office, but apparently they kept the front office. They only got rid of the coach, and so I was like, look, they're gonna if they draft Caleb Williams, it doesn't matter how good this guy is unless he's absolutely like 1 in a million, which some people think he is. They're just going to ruin him because you have a lame duck coach who's not going to care about developing the guy, is only going to care about trying to win and save his job. And, I think you ended up with this weird in-between this year. And, I mean, our coach was an idiot, right? And at least with Justin Fields, right, like he can run, right? And I think when you have a very bad team, and you have a bad offensive line.
Can I do my impression of the Chicago Bears offensive line?
Sure.
Can you call out the cadence?
Blue 42, set, hut. And you just dive under the table. Okay.
I was using the strategy that the Chicago Bears used all year, wherein they let the defensive linemen run by them in hopes that they wind up getting tired. It didn't work.
No, like I said,
and also I banged my left shoulder in my table.
That's what you get, right? I mean, physical comedy.
Got to put me on the injured list for 4 months. That's another undrafted free agent coming in off the street.
But like long story short, lame duck coach, not going to be in the best interest of trying to draft Caleb Williams. If we had a brand new coach this year, all about it, right? All about it.
I'm just saying, he's still got the timeout he didn't use on Thanksgiving against the Lions.
Oh my gosh, it is so bad.
I was in the Paris sports book when that happened, and everybody was looking around, going, what's going on here? How is this allowed to happen? Because we're all watching the clock going, what's going on here? What's going on here? What's going on here? What's going on here? And then the game's over. And it was only the second most bizarre thing the third most bizarre thing that happened in that sports book that particular weekend. The first I'm not going to talk about. The second was Michigan beating Ohio State.
Well, I think I've told the story about the angriest I've ever seen my brother, and which was yelling at Carlos Marquez, not riding out his ride. But he did write it out because it was the first finish line. But my brother thought it was a second finish, a normal finish line finish. So my brother standing up, just laying into Carlos Marquez for standing up, not finishing out his ride. He slaps me. He's like, "What the hell is Marquez doing? Like, what is going on?" Like, he is just losing his mind. And I was like, Fred, it was the first finish line, dude, not the second one. He's like, "Oh." And this was at Arlington Park. Like, we were sitting there on the apron, close enough to Marquez kind of looks over, like, who the hell? Why is this guy yelling at me? But the second most angry I've seen him was when that sequence was going on, and he just lost it. He was just he couldn't.
I can't blame
what
him.
Is going on?
Admit it, this was not the tangent you thought this podcast was taking, but
I was not prepared to talk about the Bears on this
everybody
podcast.
Out there, if you're watching on YouTube, first of all, go on down below, hit that like button and hit that subscribe button. It really helps us out. But no, we needed to have a little bit of fun on this show because fun is something that has been in very, very short supply in the world of horse racing lately. Josh, how are you holding up, man?
Pretty good. I think I think, probably just like everybody else in the world right now, stuff's getting expensive. Work is, being work. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm feeling very down about racing. And it's not, it's not even all the stuff that we've talked about, Andrew, right? We've obviously talked about the fairs. We talked about what the Stronach Group is doing again, what the Stronach Group is doing again, and it's not even just that, right? That's obviously high level discussions, right? We had this with Arlington, we've had this with other tracks closing and other stuff moving on, right? And I think, not to be super pessimistic, but I think we're going to see more of that the next couple of years. I do think that we do have a couple of just absolute bastions that are not going anywhere. One of which I believe is Oaklawn Park, which we've been talking about the last couple of weeks. Obviously, the state of Kentucky is doing well, and for as much as I just have not been, for as much as I just have not been into betting Aqueduct. I mean, Naira's not going anywhere, and honestly, I think once they get that all-weather track, all the bettors and trainers and everybody, stamping their feet. I mean, I think they're gonna be attracting a really, really nice, field size for Aqueduct in the winter too. So, there's still gonna be horse, and then obviously Hong Kong, right? Hong Kong's always a positive.
Happy Valley, joy, yes.
Yeah. So it we talk about it dying. Yes, there's going to be contraction. Yes, it's regressing a little bit, but it's going to be around. But man, betting has just been so tough for me lately. And it's funny because I was going to roll into, let's talk about a positive, which is your return on investment if you've been betting Andrew's tickets the last couple of weeks. So
thank you very much. Appreciate that. Although I got to tell you that return on investment got significantly better when my $24 ticket scratched down to $8 last week. Admittedly, got a little bit lucky in that first leg when we got a $30 horse home. That wound up making the payoff that paid about $122. So nothing insane, but on an $8 ticket, that's pretty darn good. That's not the reason that we're focusing on Oaklawn Park. This is going to be, I believe, our fourth straight show where we look at a pick four at Oaklawn. At this point, some of our loyal viewers may be saying, get off our Oaklawn. We're not going to change the title of the show, folks. It's not going to happen that way. It's just, I am very thankful for Oaklawn for a number of different reasons. First of all, Matt Dinnerman, the track announcer, is a friend of mine, and he landed as smoothly as he was going to land after the nonsense that happened at Golden Gate Fields. So I'm very, very happy for that. Also, it just seems like a track that does a lot right. And in an age where A lot of tracks don't really seem to care. Oaklawn does.
Yeah, no, for sure. And like I said, I think they're going to continue to grow and have this great winter meet.
Fingers,
Um,
toes, and eyes all crossed.
I just I've not been seeing the ball well the last probably about 2 months, I'll say. I had like I said, in December, I had a really, really nice score at Turfway Park, like the first week in December, last week of November. That you know, kickstarted my bankroll to start 2025, but it's just been tough since then, and just time and time again, the payouts don't seem as good as they used to be. The sequences don't seem to pay out the same amount. Like it's just getting tough. And when you're losing and then you're seeing that, like, I don't know, it just feels like you're getting hit twice. So I haven't been playing nearly as much as I used to. The 3 years ago, maybe, yeah, 2021 and 2022. Granted, we didn't have as much to do then, but Andrew, there probably wasn't a day that I didn't make at least one horse. There was probably 20 days the entire year that I didn't make a bet the entire year. And this, I think in December or January alone, I probably didn't bet 20 days. And granted, that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? And I'm not even talking about like playing every single race or playing, but like even looking and maybe trying to find a play at a random track or something like that. Like I don't know. Interest is just kind of, I don't know, interest among a lot of my, horse racing degenerate friends it's just getting lower and lower. And I mean, yeah, it's tough when the hardcores are starting to be like, yeah, maybe we're not going to play as much, and I'm not talking about the computer money, which is obviously the hardest of hardcore, right? But I mean, the guys that put 6, 7 figures worth of handle in, and they're the ones who aren't, the people that we constantly say we need more of. When those are the guys that are like, I don't know if I want to play as much anymore. I think you really, really got a problem. And I don't know what it is right now. Maybe it is just the effect of the computers. Maybe it's just the effect of feeling like there's just the juice isn't worth the squeeze anymore. Like there's no way to generate value anymore because you're basically playing against computers. And then you have like the tone deaf responses. I saw something on Twitter from one of the meetings where a guy, some Naira executive, is like, "Well, the players aren't playing against the computers. The computers are just they make the market. They're like they're not taking money from the players." Shut the f up. They absolutely are taking money from the players. What are you talking about? Like it's just awful, Andrew.
It is. And first of all, I just want it to be made clear that it's Josh saying all of this and not me. Because if it was me saying all of this, there would be people genuinely up in arms talking about how, oh my God, Andrew, how could you possibly say that? Because my usual motto, by the way, Matthew DeSantis, our buddy, threw this out there on the Win, Place, and Show podcast this week, mentioning my motto of in horse racing, the problem is never the problem. It's people talking about the problem. And I don't think anything exemplifies that more than what the Pegasus World Cup social media folks did. I'm not going to go into super in depth on what's going on in Florida. We've talked about it ad nauseum. The Pegasus World Cup posted something with the intention of trying to drum up ticket sales for the 2026 renewal. They posted 4 photos on social media, not a single horse to be found. It's tough to convince anybody that you care about horse racing long term when horse racing isn't part of your marketing strategy. And I'm going to leave it at that. And if somebody thinks I'm wrong on that, prove me wrong.
Yeah. Like Andrew, like this isn't supposed to be a dig at you. So don't take this as a dig at you. I don't want you to, because clearly like you and I come to this from different angles, right? I like, and this is like you're coming at this from both somebody who used to work in the industry, who still does work in the industry, does freelance work, like and still does stuff, still
Does
works.
enough work in the industry to where I've got votes for the Eclipse Awards and the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Okay. Like you, on top of that, I'm gonna consider you like a fan of the sport, right? Like
Sure.
you are absolutely a fan of the sport. You would be somebody if the the fairs came back and for some reason they said, all right, no wagering, right? It was just for purse money only. You would still be somebody I could see going and watching the horses run, right?
I'd be
I could
taking bets under the table in the grandstand.
probably, right? Probably, right? But like I'm just saying, like, hey, like if the only thing left was the Kentucky Derby and like like you would still follow the sport, like you are a fan of the sport, right?
Sure.
I'm coming at this completely from the gambling perspective. If there is no gambling, if there was no gambling, I wouldn't follow the sport. Like granted, when I was a kid, I knew the Kentucky Derby was around. I watched the Kentucky Derby every year. I've told Ed DeRosa the first Kentucky Derby I really remember was Eight Bells. I remember that.
That was the
That's
day
stuck in my head.
Big Brown saved horse racing.
Yep. I remember that. I
If
remember
Eight
them
Bells
putting
wins and then breaks down, do we have this podcast? Is there horse racing? The ramifications of that are bonkers. I
yeah.
understand people out there not liking Rick Dutrow. The guy's got a rap sheet longer than Jack Kerouac's scroll of On the Road. Okay. I get it. Everybody in horse racing should have sent IEAH and Rick Dutrow and Kent DeSormo fruit baskets the day after that Kentucky Derby.
But I mean, I remembering the guy with the white hair before I knew who Bob Baffert was. You know what I mean? Like
Oh,
I
yeah.
remember that stuff. I remember that stuff growing up. But as an adult, it's gambling. It's only gambling. That's it.
Yeah.
When the gambling aspect of it is not, and granted, Andrew, like I probably wager like 10x what you probably do in a year if I had to guess. Like which is fine. Like I said, this isn't supposed to be a dig. Just trying to show like we're coming from different perspectives. But when both the fan you and the gambler me are like, this is messed up, right? Like who is this for, right? When you see them marketing a horse racing event without a single horse anywhere. I mean, who is
Yeah.
it for? It's not for you. You're the fan. It's not for you. I'm the gambler. It's not for me. Who the hell is it for then?
It's a very good question. And look, before we go too far into this, and I did not take that as a dig at all, I very much subscribe to the Jay Trotter philosophy of there is no racing without betting. That it does not exist. I admittedly, am I somebody that's going to shove like hundreds of thousands of dollars through a betting window? No, I'm high four figures, low five figures. It's not insignificant, but no one would miss me if I was gone. That's basically where I find myself. I find myself in this weird zone where degenerates think I'm a suit and suits think I'm a degenerate. And there are times in horse racing where debates happen. And I sort of feel like a man without a country because I think everybody's wrong. I wrote about that a couple of different times with the Alex Earl situation last year and with the people that were trying to say last year's Kentucky Derby deserved an asterisk. It's a rough place to be, that's for sure. And speaking of rough places to be, that's horse racing in a nutshell right now. I don't want to get into too much of the decoupling nonsense. I don't want to get into too much of the news about the lawsuit that came out that potentially implicates a lot of people at Santa Anita. The thing I feel worst about, Josh, is this. I moved west to work for the Stronach Group at HRTV. I was there for a year and a half. I deeply value my time that I spent working at Santa Anita. That was back when every single Saturday at Santa Anita meant something. And that was not that long ago. That was back when you had horses like Beholder and California Chrome and Shared Belief. It wasn't long ago when every Saturday at that place meant something. And I know for a fact there are a lot of very good people that are on the Stronach Group First Racing payroll whose jobs and livelihoods are in grave danger because of the things that are happening right now. And my heart breaks for those people because when those tracks close, how many jobs wind up getting eliminated, and how many good, solid, hardworking, passionate people pay for the opinions of people who don't get how the sauce is made, don't understand it. And that's why the news of earlier this week that Natalie Voss pointed out about how certain people were using health insurance for exercise riders as a carrot to try to get support for decoupling, that's why that hit me the wrong way. We can talk about how decoupling is a business decision. We can talk about how property owners are going to do what they can to get the most investment possible. At the core of it, it's a business decision. That's one thing. This is fucking with people's lives, man.
Yeah.
And that's where I draw the line.
Yeah. Like when Arlington closed down, right? Churchill got out of there quickly and was like, "Hey, it's a bad deal. The casino revenue, it's just a bad deal. Like it's too much. No one's gonna want to do it. We can't make it work." And they ended up closing Arlington Park. And I remember being very upset. A lot of people were upset that Arlington Park was a palace.
Yep.
They didn't give anybody a chance to try and come in and buy it and take the deal that was being offered. They just destroyed it, right? And for that, like, I won't forgive them. But now leaving Illinois and seeing Hawthorne, who is still in the process of getting a casino, right? Like they're doing their damnedest to make it work, right? And they're sticking in there. But hey, like, I guess Churchill was a little bit right, because they're having a hard time trying to find a partner to make the deal, right? Business decision, right? But you have very passionate people at Hawthorne that are trying to make it work. The difference is with the Stronach group is business decision. It immediately just means like, all right, much like Churchill, we're out. So, I do think that there was some underhandedness with the stuff that you had mentioned, and there's all other stuff that I don't understand. I'm coming at this, like I said, once again from a gambler, but like when you and I, like, we agree on a lot of stuff, like in principle, and we agree on a lot of things. We disagree on some stuff, right? And like I said, I always like doing this because we come at it from different things. I mean, there's times, Andrew, we get done recording this, and like, no joke, I'll message the rest of the On the Wrong League guys. I'm like, Andrew is such a square. This man picked 3 chalks in this, like, whatever. Like, fine, like we see gambling differently.
And then my $8 pick 4 ticket,
and then your $8
$122.
Yeah, and then I'm the idiot, right? Because I hate money, but still, right? Like there are times where I'm just like, oh my god, like. But I like that back and forth we come from different spots, and it's like when both the gambler and the fan, right? Like when we just don't see it, we don't understand it. Who is this for?
Yep.
And it's just, yeah, I don't know, man. It drives me wild sometimes.
It does. And I mean, just really quick before we wind up getting to the Oaklawn Late P4 for Saturday, which starts in race number 7. I mean, stuff like this and stuff like a number of the other shows that I've been fortunate enough to do, we're all passionate people. And at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. We want horse racing to thrive. I want Santa Anita to be the cathedral that it should be. I want Gulfstream Park to be thriving. If those 2 places are thriving, the sport is better. And there are some people out there that are going to say, oh, Andrew's talking about all of this stuff that's going on. He's got an agenda and all this other shit. No, that's not the case at all. If Santa Anita is good and Gulfstream is good, a rising tide lifts all boats. That's not the case. This is a situation where things are not good. And the problem is not the people saying things are not good. The problem is the people that are making things not good. And if you don't understand that, I can't help you.
Yeah. But hey, let's do some handicapping. Let's talk about
Get off my Oaklawn.
Exactly.
We need the Clint Eastwood gif of him with the gun.
No, we can't. I think obviously Oaklawn Racing, Oaklawn Park has the Oaklawn trademark, and obviously there's also the Wolf of Oaklawn. We don't want to.
Yeah, especially if it's the season where the wolf is rabid. That's not a good thing. And also, he's got this guy with a sniper scope. No, we don't want to piss those people off. Love you, Chase. Love you, Barry.
Can we actually talk about the Wolf of Oaklawn origin story?
Please do.
Do we want to talk about it?
I mean, you
So
can. I'll just sit back and watch, and then if he wants to go to like 30,000 feet and curse at you, that'd be fine.
yeah, oh yeah. Send me a nice fu from 30,000 feet. I mean, it's not really his origin story, but it was just it was just really funny. Like he, like I all of a sudden I started noticing the like the Twitter handle every once in a while posting something, and like he was like I think he was selling a tout sheet,
He
and
was, yeah.
yeah, I think immediately it was a tout sheet thing, but he was posting and stuff, and this is before AI, so this is before all his AI art, and I just remember Chase at some point just messaging me. He's like, I got a confession for you. I'm like, what? He's like, I'm the Wolf of Oaklawn. I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, you know that guy's been posting and selling tout sheets. That's me. I'm the Wolf of Oaklawn. Like it was like this big secret, like who this guy was, right? And I was like, oh, okay, cool, Chase. Like,
So this was Who is Tinky before Who is Tinky was Who
I
is
guess,
Tinky.
yeah. And who's
Okay.
the Wolf of Oaklawn? Like he was like, dude, he's like, I need somebody to know that it's me. Like I was like, okay, cool. I was like,
What a
you
great
know,
guy. Love you,
yeah.
Chase.
So, um, but and then I forgot what I was gonna say. I told him something. I was like, oh, I'm gonna be the something. I was trying to think of something funny. The something of
The Hen
Arlington.
of Hawthorne.
No, the something. Well, Arlington was still running, so it was the
Okay.
something of Arlington I was gonna go
The
with, and then
Aardvark of Arlington,
yeah,
perhaps.
sure, the Aardvark of Arlington. That's
There you
what it should
go.
have been. Yeah,
That's okay.
see, Andrew, this is pre you. I see. I needed you back then to,
Yes, you did.
you
You
know.
like I could be the pheasant of Pleasanton. I don't know.
Mm.
This is just going so far off the
Yeah.
rails.
Okay. Yeah. Let's
We
get
should
to the
probably
racing.
start talking about this, and then we can redirect the conversation back to how you hate money.
Yeah. Well, race 7. I mean, probably does mean I hate money because I'm going pretty deep here. We're gonna be going 6 furlongs here on the main track. Andrew, luckily this is probably one of the races that you and I have a couple of horses in common. We're each going 4 deep, and we got 3 horses in common
There
here.
we go.
So I think we see this race kind of the same. Um, you know, I think when I looked at this race, I included the 10, who's the 5-2 Morning favorite, Payne, because obviously the last 2 races look good, right? Ran second in the 40K claimer, won a 30K claimer, and now is coming down. Well, we're not going to really say coming down in class. It's an optional claimer. He is in for a tag here of 20,000. But I mean, those last 2 races, I mean, they just on paper they look good enough to win here.
And
Um,
honestly, who's going to reach in and claim a 10-year-old?
yeah, it's for 20,000 at this point. Like, I mean, because you're probably not. I mean, yeah, like you maybe you break even. You know, maybe you win another couple of claiming races here and there. Maybe he gets claimed for 12 or something, 10. But yeah, I don't know. Well, we'll see what happens there. But um, yeah, I think obviously the 10 makes a ton of sense, all the sense in the world. My top pick, I think, is probably going to be the number 5 here, Lightning Struck. And you know, I the last race, at least on Brisnet, came back pretty good. It came back competitive for here, and the race 2 back looks really good. And I just think that this is one. Actually, no, I got my horses mixed up. Sorry. I was like, wait a second, this is the wet track. Actually, my top pick's number 4, Circle Backtrack. Excuse me. And if you the race 2 back is the best race any of these horses have run in the last couple tries. Last race, you got a muddy track, right? And granted, we say this all the time. This is a tonal list, right? With Migdalia Oro on the bottom. You're like, that's mud pedigree top and bottom. Well, this horse has had 3 tries on the off track, and all of them have not been good. This horse just doesn't like the mud. So I think coming back to a fast track, if he gets it, I think he's my top pick. I just think that, he's got that race 2 back. Yes, he's a 6-year-old. So running a top as a late 5-year-old into 6, maybe that was just a kind of an off thing. But I'm hoping he runs back to that. I think the price is right. I like these connections. Genaro Garcia is winning at 26%. He's 18% third off the layoff. Emmanuel Esquivel gets aboard, and they're winning at 23% together, or Esquivel, excuse me. I think the 4 at 10-1, anything close to 10-1 is going to be my top pick, and of course that's the horse that we don't have in common, which I think is kind of funny. But I love the 5 as well. The 5 I think is kind of your, you know, he's like the typical horse that runs at like these small weird tracks like Arapahoe, Zia Park, Prairie Meadows, and like he wins a couple races, and you're like, well, all right, now he's going to Oaklawn where the horses are a lot better. Like, is he really going to stack up? And he did. He won a race 2 back. He ran 5th by 2.5 lengths last race. So I think he's in here with a shot. I'm not sure if this is if you didn't go to the wedding, don't go to the funeral type thing, since he was 30-1 plus in both last races. But I mean, clearly the last race he was in over his head, right? I mean, that was a $130,000 allowance, right? After winning a $15,000 claimer, I think maybe that was a little ambitious, we'll say. But he didn't embarrass himself, right? Yes, there's only 7 horses, but he was only 2.5 lengths back there. But if you kind of look at his winning runs, it does, you know, he sits kind of close. He sits that pressing trip. He's like 2 lengths off, and then he closes into it and he wins, right? He just didn't have that kick last time because they were just faster horses in that race. So I think coming back down a level, coming back down to earth a little bit, I think is going to be good for the 5 here. I already talked about the 10, and then the only other horse was the 8. I'm no joke here, who I have as a B. But Andrew, you know, I've already sat here and talked for a bit, so I'll let you talk a little bit about the horses that you liked.
Well, that's a really good segue because number 8, I'm no joke, is my top pick. I did not like the ride that he got last time out. This is a runner with a lot of early speed. If you look back at his races at Remington, you see some 22 and change opening quarters. And last time out at Oaklawn, his first call, he's 8th of 11. He's not a closer. He wants to go early. And I have to think Mr. Hernandez got a little bit of a lecture after that race because it's not like he ran poorly. He was 4th, beaten less than 3 lengths, despite going wide and being further back than he wants to be. He doesn't need the lead by any means, but I do think he wants to be sitting that first flight trip, a length and a half, 2 lengths off the speed, and get first run turning for home. If he gets that kind of trip here, I think he's got a big shot. I was impressed with the fact that he ran reasonably well last time out, despite a trip that did not play to his strengths. I'm going 4 deep in here. You mentioned number 5, Lightning Struck. That one makes a little bit of sense to me for very similar reasons. This one won that race 2 back over my top selection. Last time out, didn't run terribly. Yes, he was 32-1, but he was 5th, beaten 2.5 lengths by a decent field. I'm not going to be downgrading him in this particular race. Those are my 2 A's. My 2 B's, and you can get the Mark Capitan defensive B alert button ready here because I do need to use, thank you for that. I do need to use number 10 Payne in the event this race completely falls apart. He's one of the few horses that wants to go late and wants to pass other horses late. And I look back at that race 2 starts ago when he went 6 furlongs in 109 and change. If he runs 109 and change, nobody's beating him in this particular spot. He loves this Oaklawn track, 4 wins and 10 in the money finishes and 12 local starts. A nice, honest horse throughout his entire career. 9 wins and 43 starts with 10 seconds. Again, a 10-year-old, people. You don't see a lot of 10-year-olds running anymore. This one brings his heart out every time out and is a real easy horse to root for. I'm going to throw in number 11, Top Gun Tommy, and this is more of an Andrew throws his hands up because he doesn't want to get beat by this horse. I have no idea how to figure David Jacobson horses out. To me, they either win by 5 or they lose by 15, and I just don't want to get burned when I've got a single elsewhere. I will be playing a ticket that definitely leans more on my 2 A's, which are Lightning Struck and I'm No Joke. I do think you're going to get some value with whatever horse you like in here. Top Gun Tommy is your 2-1 morning line favorite. And Josh, that seems short. I don't think we're going to get 2-1 on that horse. This seems to me like a race where the favorite's going to be 3-1, 7-2. I do think the money is going to be spread out a considerable amount. You mentioned number 4, Circleback Jack. I didn't particularly love him in this spot, but I don't think you're going to get 10-1 on that horse. I think 8-1 is going to be about what you get. I do think this is going to be a race that my friend Tom Amello would call a chaos board race, where if a horse winds up winning at, say, 9-2, 5-1, it's going to pay a little bit more than that in the multis. And for that reason, I've got no issue spreading here, especially because I've got a single that I like quite a bit in the third leg of this sequence.
Yeah. And like, just for full transparency, I was in a full blown football manager trance for about 2 hours before this recording, and so like going back and looking through the race, and it was like obviously I confused the 5 and the 4 to start, which is obviously a great start to the podcast, but yeah, my strongest opinion in this race is I just didn't like the 11. Top Gun Tommy.
I
And
do think he either wins or is absolutely nowhere. I don't think you're going to get a situation where he's a strong second.
yeah, I just, there's just a lot I just don't like in this type of horse, right? If you kind of look back, um, has two like real like races that really stand out to me. We're looking at the April 27th race at Santa Anita, the Del Mar race in September 24th. Both of those for George Papapadromo, who's a really great trainer out west. And then he kind of goes to Keeneland and a 10K allowance. It's kind of flat. Then is second by a nose at Churchill Downs, but then gets his claim voided. So I don't know if something happened there, and now you're coming in here off a layoff at a short price. It just stinks. I just don't like the spot for a horse like that, especially at such a short price. Um, but I mean, yeah, like I agree with you, Andrew. I mean, like the horse can win, but I think taking a 2-1 in an 11 horse field on a horse coming off a layoff, off a voided claim. I mean, yeah, for good connections and David Jacobs and obviously Tyler Gaffleone sees fit to ride, while he's in town. So, but I just, that's just not the type of horse I like to use. So I'll be fading.
I can't say that I blame you. And if that horse somehow winds up coming down off of that 2-1 price, there may be tickets where I toss that horse, because there's definitely a price that I would want that I do think we're going to wind up getting, but still just one of those situations where watching the board is your friend. And since this is the first race in that sequence, we can do that.
Yep. Plugging right along. Race 8, 6 furlongs, 110K maiden, for maidens 3-year-old and up. And, Andrew, I think this ended up being kind of another spready race for me. But I'll let you go first, Andrew. Where did you land here?
I have two strong opinions. Do you want to hear about the favorite I'm against or the long shot I like on top?
Let's go with the favorite you're against.
I don't like the 5 Velociraptor. And looking at the form, I was prepared to want to like that horse. This is a runner that debuted at Gulfstream back in August, which, given this barn stock, is a red flag for me. Because if Mark Casse has a serious runner, he's probably not debuting in the summer at Gulfstream. Showed some early speed, was fourth beaten 4 1/4 lengths, and dropped like a rock in the stretch. They shipped him to Churchill. I was expecting a move forward. Once again, fast pace, he fades in the stretch. And we haven't seen him since September 28th. Furthermore, we have 4 works since October 31st. Everything about this horse, from the way he runs to his work tab to a pedigree that indicates he wants 2 turns rather than 1, screams bet against for me in this spot, especially at that 3-1 morning line price. I will be very intrigued to hear what you liked about that horse, because if you're watching us on YouTube, you are seeing a big ol' A by Velociraptor for Josh in the past performances. The long shot I like breaks right to that one's outside. That's number 6, Bun Temps. And if you look at this horse, you're going to see some stuff that's very weird until you look at the trainer. Josh, who's the conditioner for this horse?
D. Wayne Lucas.
Weird stuff happens with D. Wayne Lucas horses. Let's dive in and let's take a look. First time out, he catches a sloppy track at Churchill going 5 furlongs. Lucas horses generally do not win at first asking anyway. That's a tough ask. They shipped the horse to Oaklawn on December 21st. and he takes a step forward. He's fourth beaten 5 lengths. He didn't break all that well on that particular occasion, but he at least showed enough to move forward. In fact, he moved forward enough for these connections to run him back 2 weeks later in the Smarty Jones. And he runs fourth that day, beaten 5 lengths in his first 2-turn start. After that, they run him in the Grade 3 Southwest, and he doesn't run well at all whatsoever. It sure looked like Nick Juarez just wrapped up on him going down the backstretch and preserved him for another day. He drops down from the Grade 3 Southwest into Maiden Special Weight Company, cutting back to 1 turn off a series of very good works, and gets Lasix for the first time. I think Bontemps has found his friends here. I think he could potentially wind up being a horse that develops a lot in this spot. And I really hope that if he winds up winning this race at some bonkers price, instead of running this horse back in the Rebel, like we know D. Wayne Lucas probably wants to, find a non-winners of one and take it slow with this horse, because there have been a couple of races where he's shown a considerable amount of talent and potential. So I think Bontemps has found his friends here. I am not sold on Velociraptor. A couple of the other horses that I'm using here, I'm using both of the Ron McQuet runners. That's the 3 Stomp and the 8 Him. Both of those should get bet. There's a fair amount of potential flashed in the works there. I'm also going to use number 11 Gunrunner Charlie, who has a lot of room to move forward off of his first start. He wound up breaking slowly that day. He steadied. He somehow managed to pass a couple of horses and ran fifth. There's been a trainer change to Peter Miller. He adds Lasix. He adds blinkers. There's a lot of room for this runner to improve at second asking, and for that reason, I need to use him. But I am 4 deep going against Velociraptor here. Bontemps is my top selection, also using the 3, 8, and 11.
Yeah, I'm also using the 3 Stomp. This is just a horse that looks like it's been working very well. You're getting Matoli, who's winning at 12%. And Ron Moquette isn't exactly known for winning first time out, but you see Tyler Gaffleone's getting aboard. I have my reservations obviously with Tyler Gaffleone, but
You have your reservations about most riders, Josh. Let's be real.
yeah, except for ones except for the ones that I probably should have reservations for, I don't.
Remember the 6-month period when you were convinced Flavian Pratt couldn't ride? That was a fun time.
Yeah. But Tyler Gaffleone coming here, and this isn't exactly the strongest jockey in going right now, strongest jockey colony going right now. So Tyler showing up, basically I think kind of gets his pick a little bit. So yeah, I think Stomp is probably well meant here, and maybe the rest kind of turn into B's, and it's a lone A there with Stomp. Velociraptor, I didn't really think about what you kind of said with thinking about Mark Casse, and him debuting this horse at Gulfstream instead of, I don't know, Woodbine or somewhere in New York.
He sent a
over the
couple of
summer.
really good ones to Saratoga last summer. This was,
Yeah.
to me, very clearly part of the second string.
Yeah, but I do like the fact that the horse has shown speed both times, and it is coming in here with a couple of works. I know we haven't seen him since September 28th, but since he worked a couple times in October. They rested him a little bit, and now has got 4 straight works here coming from December. They look fine. I don't necessarily know if the horse is going to be that short. I really do think the first time starter is going to take a bit. So maybe I'm reading in the tea leaves too much, but I do think this is a horse that can win. When I kind of look at the horses with starts, he's the one that's shown the most speed. So I'm basically just playing like, hey, I know this horse is going to show speed. Maybe the speed carries him here. First time running at Oaklawn. I don't know. It is kind of a tough race. Of the other horses that have starts, I actually kind of like this 2 Secret Legend for Kelsey Haar, who I know is 0 for 41 to start, and Robert Klein. Debuted at Canterbury on the turf, but I see a horse that's moved forward every single start, right? So debuted on the turf, wasn't great. Ran third in at the same level, ran fourth at the same level, but ran a faster number, and now is coming here third off the layoff. Is getting Lasix for the second time here. The work tab, obviously we're going back. I mean, the horse looked like it was pretty primed for the last couple starts. So yeah, I don't know. I like this third off the layoff. I think you might get a move forward. I don't think 6-1 is going to happen. I think you're going to get a longer price on here because I think people are going to look at the connections and see how cold they are. But I think that this is a horse that has made a couple steps forward and isn't that far off of what is probably a winning effort here at this level. So I like the two here. Secret Legends is probably going to be kind of some type of middle price. And then, as my lone B at 15-1 in the morning line, I like the Steve Asmussen horse, Rango, the 10. And now I don't know if the Steve Asmussen angle, when it's a bullet at Louisiana Downs and then the two maintenance works and then ships in, counts. But obviously, Steve runs horses everywhere, right? So he's got horses stabled everywhere. And, you know, he's not afraid to run a horse at a track like Remington, which I know isn't running right now, but Remington or Louisiana Downs or any of the lower tracks if he thinks that's the level for the horse. So I think the fact that he's shipping this horse out that was training in Louisiana out here to Oaklawn, and you know with like, I guess it's probably the better of his stock that he has here. This is Bolt Oro is winning at 16% first out. And this was a horse that did sell for a little bit more than the stud fee. So maybe there's something there. And I think 15-1 on a first time Steve Asmussen horse is, I'm gonna take a shot because there wasn't a whole lot here that had starts that I was like really, really interested in. So I think I'm gonna take a shot with two first time starters. Obviously, the well meant three, but I think this 10 here has got a shot as well at 15-1.
So here's my question for you. And before we do that, first of all, I do not believe this is the CJ that you and I are both friends with, CJ Johnson. Those silks
No.
don't seem right. There's several different CJ operations, including some that may well wind up have bills going to the wrong address. If you like Rango, don't you also have to like Iron Dome, who's also a Steve Asmussen trainee and who fetched $500,000 at auction? At a minimum, this makes me question why Steve Asmussen is running two horses in here. And it's one of those instances where if you like a horse at a big price, it's not necessarily that much of a concern. But it does make you think when it's a trainer like Steve Asmussen, who, as you mentioned, Josh, has no problem shipping horses anywhere. I mean, this is a guy that has strings at Delta Downs, has strings at Sam Houston, has strings at Turfway. He's everywhere. So why do two of his horses wind up running here? It's just one of those questions that you need to ask. And I'm asking that about the two Ron McQuett runners because you like one of them, you didn't use the other one. I used them both because I just couldn't separate them based on the works. With Steve Asmussen runners, I tend to wait for a race because sometimes his horses tend to need one. But I look at this horse and I see $500,000 purchase price. Someone somewhere at one point thought Iron Dome was a runner. The workouts don't necessarily bear that out, but it's going to be interesting to see if either Asmussen horse takes money or if Asmussen scratches one of those runners. And I've always subscribed to the theory that when a trainer has multiple horses and scratches one of them, the other one's probably well met.
Yeah, and that might be something to watch out for. That's a really good point. So
I make those every once in a while, once or twice a show.
Let's move on to race 9.
Here is where Josh hates money, folks.
The grade 3 Bayakoa, mile and 16th here for fillies and mares, 4-year-old and up. Yeah, there's a 2-1 favorite or a 2-1 horse in the one Corningstone. So 9-5 horse in the 6 Loved, and I didn't use either of them. I am singling the 3 horse, Little Jamie. And this is a Robert Medina trained horse. Ramon Vasquez riding here. And honestly, Andrew, it just comes down to the versatility, right? Last time out in the Wayward Lass, this horse was, sixth, then kind of shuffled back a little bit, seventh, and then so little baby Z pattern here, and then was able to close and win by a length and a quarter. But if you look at some of the previous races, I mean the Monmouth Oaks, this was a forwardly placed horse. The allowance race last year in November is also a forwardly placed horse. Obviously, he didn't win, or she didn't win in those, excuse me. But I like the versatility that this horse is going to show. And, when I kind of looked at this race, I see the 2 Wild About Hillary got the E8 designation, has gone, 22-4 going a mile, 24-2 last time, kind of got a bit of a slow pace last time out to go wire to wire, but is one that does have, I think, some sprinter speed, can go 22. So I definitely do think that that's the horse that's going to go to the lead. And yeah, I just think that little Jamie, depending on whatever is kind of thrown at her, is going to be able to sit a trip, whether if it gets kind of fast up front, be able to close into it, or sit kind of forward up on that pace and win. Obviously, I like the horse coming in with good form, winning that listed stakes race. But yeah, I know you went different spot, and obviously you're looking at a graded stakes winner in the 6 Loved.
I don't know if you heard that, but I just banged my elbow on the table. That wasn't out of frustration. That was out of the fact that I'm pretty darn clumsy. Before we go much further, Josh, put you on the
Yeah,
spot. What do you know about Bayakoa?
nothing. Is it a
Bayakoa won
place or is it a horse?
Bayakoa won 13 grade 1 races and is the answer to a very unfortunate trivia question. When Go for One broke down in the Breeders' Cup Distaff, who was she dueling with?
It was Baiko, I'm guessing.
Bayakoa was a phenomenal racehorse. Lafitte Pinkai, I believe, was a primary rider for Ron McAnally. 13 grade 1 wins, folks. That doesn't happen very often anymore.
Yeah.
We've got a field of 6 signed on here. Josh, you hinted at this. This race sets up for a closer. Corningstone's going to go. Wild Bet Hillary's going to go. I think little Jamie's going to go, and I wanted to like her more than I do because I saw the effort in the Wayward Lass. But the more I look, the more I see a horse that I don't think beat a lot that day. And also, the Tampa Bay Downs main track is quirky. Sometimes horses that run very, very well there can't replicate that elsewhere. She ran well that day and she showed a new dimension. I need to see that again. And I do think she's going to be a bit more forwardly placed in here. Number 4, Bow Draw, has a lot of early speed. Free Like a Girl, I think, is going to run late. But the late runner that I like is Loved, horse number 6 in the program. I didn't like her at all last time out in the Fall City. My dad and I were in Vegas. We were playing Churchill. And I did not like Loved at all whatsoever because I thought she was going to go early. Well, she didn't. She wound up sitting, she pounced, and she ran gigantic. Now, the question is, did she run gigantic because she's getting better as she gets older? Or was it because of the fact that it was in the mud, where she's now 2 for 2? I tend to believe it's the former because the race 2 back in the Spinster wasn't as bad as it might look on paper. You see the running lines and you see the fact that she's 4th beaten 9 lengths. Idiomatic won that race. Occult was 2nd. Candied was 3rd. All 3 of those horses would be significantly favored in this particular spot. I think Loved is going to sit a dream trip just off of a very hot pace, and she's going to be the horse that I think they have to catch. And Josh, I don't think they're talented enough to do it. If I was to back any closer, It would be the 5 Free Like a Girl, who's a very fun horse to root for. You want to talk about a horse that consistently shows up? This will be her 48th lifetime start. She's searching for her 22nd career win, and she's banked $2.1 million. None of this you would expect given the pedigree. Josh, were you a racing fan for when El Deal rose to the scene for about 5 minutes?
Mm-mm.
El Deal was claimed by one Jorge Navarro for something like $4,000, was shipped to Charlestown, won a 4.5 furlong race, and from there, Mr. Navarro saw fit to ship him to Saratoga for the AG Vanderbilt. They broke, and he never looked like a loser. That was the moment where I think we all sort of knew, okay, there's something going on here. That's not supposed to happen. El Deal somehow managed to throw Free Like a Girl, who is a late running 2-turn horse that just always seems to fire. Now, sometimes her shot is just not enough. They've tried her in grade 1 and grade 2 company a couple of times over the years. She was second behind Idiomatic in the La Troyenne last year, back on May the 3rd of 2024. They kept her busy. She ran 14 times last year. Easy horse to root for. I think she's second best in this spot. I think Loved is a single. I think you need a single at some point in this sequence because some of the fields are pretty darn deep. Loved, to me, hits me as strictly the one to beat, especially if it winds up a bit wet at Oaklawn Park. They're saying that it's supposed to be pretty dry on Saturday, but that they may very well get some rain on Thursday or Friday. So do keep an eye on that. Loved obviously moves way up by anyone's estimation if the track winds up taking some moisture. But I think, regardless of the track condition, that she's the horse to beat.
Yeah, I looked at Love the same way you did, and I just took the other side of the coin. I think that the last effort obviously was flattered by the fact that it was mud, 2 for 2 on the mud, and including the fastest Brisnet speed figure that the horse's run has been on mud. And that usually for me is kind of like not a red flag, like I'm gonna downgrade a horse, but just more of a okay, this seems like a horse that likes the off going. But no, you're totally right. I mean, the horse has got 2 efforts before that, speed figure wise, that totally fit here. So it's not like it's just the mud efforts that win here. But and this is the horse that Tyler's in town for, right? So
Would
he
have
probably
to
didn't
be.
make he probably is not coming to not win. So yeah. We see it a little bit different. I hate money apparently, but no. But interestingly, we didn't really talk about the one. I mean, you think just pace casualty?
I mean, I thought that she had, to steal a phrase from our good friend Caleb, a candy ass trip last time out. She was never challenged up front. Credit to Julien Leparoux. Heck of a ride. Seems like he fits her pretty well. I just can't imagine that type of scenario replicating itself in this particular spot. I think this is a class hike for her as well. I don't think she beat a lot in the Pippin last time out. And here she gets a couple of legitimate graded stakes caliber horses. Would not be at all surprised if she winds up getting some more black type. This was a runner that fetched $275,000 at last year's Keeneland November sale as a racing and breeding prospect, because she already has a couple of graded stakes placings. She was second in the Locust Grove last year. She was third in the Houston Ladies Classic, which is a grade 3. I just can't see her being able to replicate the effort she put forth last time out. And even the effort she put forth last time out, Josh, I don't think is good enough.
Man, I can't wait till they put the synthetic track in at Saratoga, and I can bet Julien Leparoux at Saratoga.
Get out. How long have you been sitting on that one?
What, putting the synthetic track at Saratoga, or the
Yeah.
fact that I want to bet Julian at Saratoga when
No,
the
the
synthetic track gets
synthetic
added?
track stuff at Saratoga. I mean,
Uh,
my God, just get out. Get out. Just get out. Race number 10.
Honestly though, like real talk, I'm happy to see that Julian is found a place to have success at. Like,
Yes.
I always like we always on the wrong lead. We tend to be pretty tough on jockeys, to say it nicely.
Some
Uh,
of us tougher than
then
others.
some of us tougher than others, but Um, it's always tough, right? Like Saratoga. The 10th best jockey in the Saratoga Jocks room is the best jockey at basically 95% of the other tracks that are running.
Yeah.
You know, and it oftentimes it felt like, I know Mark Capitan especially would be like, oh, you just never bet Julian at Saratoga, right? And he'd come up and he'd be 4% for the meet or something, right? When he was coming up regularly. And it's good to see him, I mean, last year I think he had kind of a tough year. He's only 11%. But it's good to see him, sit here and, be at 22%. I always think he rides the turf very well. Like I said, I think when the synthetic, if he would like just go up to Woodbine, I mean, the man would clean up, just riding nothing but synthetic and turf the whole year. I mean, I think he would love it, but,
The thing with Julian is he's maddeningly inconsistent. When he's bad, he's horrendous. When he's good, he is world class. And there's very little in the way of a middle ground. There's a reason he rode Tepin. He rode her to a lot of victories, and he wasn't just a passenger on that horse. When he is riding as well as he's capable of riding, he's outstanding. The problem is he's had a couple of rides on big stages that have not gone well.
yep. All right. Well, race 10, we both like it. We both actually have Julian's horse in Frosted Miracle on both our
Yep.
tickets. You got 5 horses in this race. I got 4. We got 3 in common, Andrew. So I'll let you walk through your selections here first. Who do you like in race 10?
2 A's and 3 B's for me to finish things out. The race goes through number 3, La Fantastica, and it depends on what version of La Fantastica you think you're getting. Last time out, she was second beaten 4 lengths. The race didn't come back overly fast on speed figures. And then that day's winner wound up winning a stakes race. That's Take Charge Milady. So that franked the form. And La Fantastica that day was more than 7 lengths clear of the third place finisher. This hits me as a now or never spot. The danger is if La Fantastica winds up turning into a money burner, because this is a field that she should be favored against. You wind up in a situation where she's got some tactical speed. We'll see. I'm using her. I'm not insanely bullish. My top selection is actually 12-1 on the morning line, and it's the bottom horse in the program, breaking from post 11, going 2 turns. That's Lobby Rendezvous. Excuse me. Lobby Rendezvous needed the debut on November the 2nd at Churchill Downs. Can't hold that against that horse too much. She stretched out to 2 turns on November 23rd. She was 6 wide turning for home, but managed to make a little bit of headway and ran a decent 5th. That day's second place finisher came right back to win. That day's winner ran very, very well. She ran on December 29th and was sort of one-paced in a day where the field just wasn't necessarily coming back. She was 5th that day. I think there's room to improve. There are some decent workouts here, and I think there is some inexpensive velocity signed on in this race with a couple of horses that aren't necessarily bred to go 2 turns that have speed, and I think will not hesitate to use it. With that in mind, I need a closer, and I think Lobby Rendezvous could be sitting on a lifetime best race in career start number 4. For that reason, I need to use that horse, and I would not be at all surprised if that one winds up being the value play in here. I mentioned that there were 3 others. We briefly talked about number 1, Frosted Miracle. By Frosted out of a Harlan's Holiday mare that's distance top and bottom. More than willing to forgive the debut effort. Kenny McPeak's first-time starters often need a race. There are some really good works on the tab, and he wheels this one back pretty quick. That debut effort was January 26th, so we're looking at less than 2 weeks, and I think that's a sign of confidence that a horse is doing well and got a lot out of the debut if she's back and ready to run. Have to at least use that horse and at the very least cover my rear end in the event she winds up stepping forward, which I think is very possible. I'll use number 8, Yes Ma'am. If the dam of that horse looks familiar, that's ma'am. Ma'am through Mystic Dan, who won a little racing in Kentucky last year. Yes, Ma'am stretches out from 6 furlongs. Made an early move on debut in a race that had a very fast early pace in the mud. Gets Lasix for the first time, stretches out to 2 turns, gets Tyler Gaffleone. John Ortiz has been ice cold this meet, 2 of 52, but I think he's got a live one in here. I do think Yes Ma'am will like the 2 turns and that she could improve second time out. I'll also give one more shot to horse number 9, Momentario. Momentario showed speed in the debut at Churchill, wound up sixth, beaten 9 lengths. Hi, Coots, how you doing? Stretched out to 2 turns at Oaklawn and was sort of one paced after a rough start. But I like the fact that the top 2 horses from that race both came right back to win. And also, while she was sixth, she was beaten a half length for third. That was a blanket finish for the minor awards, and she just got a little bit unlucky. What I'm a little, I don't even want to say concerned, because I do think there's a chance there's something going on here, at least in my form, no workouts since that December 6th race. I don't know whether they sent her to a training facility or what, but that's interesting to me. I see a pedigree that's very heavy on distance, War of Will on top, Tappet Mare on the bottom. I need to at least give that horse one more shot, because that hits me as a 2x4 horse, which is, if you don't use that horse and it beats you and you want to hit yourself in the head with a 2x4, Josh, you know what you do?
You do it.
You use the horse. That's what I'm doing. And if I wind up going 3 for 3 and getting knocked out by that horse paying $26, I will not be a very happy camper. So I'm going 5 deep in here. There's a fair amount of unknowns. I respect the favorite. I don't think she's a cinch.
Yeah, the 3 horse La Fantastica I'm using for the same exact reasons that you'd already mentioned, right? Coming out of that key race, and it was a sloppy track. We'll see what we get once again, but yeah, the figure was fine. The horses got some good efforts. Kentucky Downs, and Keeneland on the turf. It seems like they're decided to try the dirt here, and it seems like it's run just fine on either surface. So, yeah, this, like you said, I think this is kind of the now or never. I love betting horses like the one, Frosted Miracle. You got a horse that, first time out, ran kind of flat, finished seventh, beaten by 12 lengths, so only beat 2 other horses in that race. But you look at the speed figure, and the speed figure is okay, right? It's not nothing to write home about, but it's decent, and you just kind of assume, hey, maybe that horse just needed the race. Kenny McPeak's second time taking a horse on a route, 18%. And honestly, winning at a route first time out is very, very tough. So I'm not gonna sit here and just completely discount this horse. I like the fact that the horse is coming back on short rest, like you kind of mentioned. I think the one's probably my top pick in this race. Lightly raced horse, coming back early. Second time out, ran okay last time out. Probably wasn't the target, and maybe it was just more like a kind of like a paid workout. So. Yeah, I'm interested to see how Frosted Miracle runs the second time out. Love the price at 8-1. We'll see what we get. Obviously, we already talked about the 3. And then the other horse that we had in common was the 9, Momentario. And, I just figure if I'm using one Asmussen, I might as well use the other one. This is a horse that in October, through a nice bullet work, and I think kind of had 2 flat efforts. We obviously, the one interesting thing about this horse is you still don't see the L, right? You still don't see Lasix for this horse, and the horse hasn't used Lasix the last 2 times. So, and obviously here, this is a race that you can use Lasix in. So it's interesting because maybe Steve knows something we don't, and maybe he wants to point this horse eventually towards some stakes type races that you can't use Lasix in. So I don't know if I'm just reading too much into that. War of Will, not exactly a horse that has been, or a sire that has been throwing out first time winners. He's only 5% first time. So, maybe it's just one that they're trying to bring along, kind of slowly here. Obviously, those two starts. I don't know. I think that this is kind of like you said, the lack of works kind of throw me off a little bit. But I don't know. The breeding looks good. The efforts weren't that bad. Third time here, third time start, coming off that layoff is something that Steve is good at. So, it's just like you said, one that like I look at the form and my eyes kept on going back to it. And I'm like, I've looked at this horse 6 times now. Like, I got to use it. Like, let's just move on. So your 2x4 horse there. I'm also going to use the 4 in Princess M2. And last time out came at the route. I don't know if it was the muddy track or what happened, but it was kind of 4 wide the entire time, and just didn't seem to have it there near the end. Um, you know, I'm kind of surprised you didn't use this horse, Andrew, because this seems like the type of horse you would always use. Because I look and I see weekend, and then I look and I see the big old bold L. So, maybe this is just the quintessential horse needs Lasix. Phil D'Amato, 18% first time Lasix, 19% first off the third time off the layoff. Yeah, I think that this maybe just looks like a horse that needs Lasix, is getting Lasix here. And the race 2 back fits here. So maybe that's going to be enough to get this horse over it. But that's the only horse out of the 3 common horses I'm using in addition to. So I'm 1, 3, 4, 9 here.
So there were 2 horses in here that I wanted no part of at their likely prices. That's the important factor here. One of them was Princess M2. She's 7-2 on the morning line. I think that's a significant underlay. If you were going to tell me she was 8-1, I'd be interested. But I look at her running lines and I see a number of tough trips. Now, there has been a jockey switch. Ramon Vasquez will ride on Saturday, and perhaps that will move her forward. Maybe Lasix winds up moving her forward as well. But in a race where I'm going 5 deep and I think there's value elsewhere, I can't justify backing this horse at 7-2 when this horse may well have weakened just because it was going 2 turns, as opposed to maybe needing Lasix, maybe not. Now, if this horse was 8-1, you could potentially talk me into that. But at the likely price, I can't back Princess M2. Number 5, Good Game, was the other one. 6-1 on the morning line. And if you look at the 2 starts, you see significant gate issues. And you can make the argument that last time out that cost her. I don't think it did, because that first quarter went in 23-3, and she was probably in the best spot she could have been, very far back off of a very hot pace. And she just came up totally empty. I look at that pedigree. I see Game Winner, champion 2-year-old. I see Brazen Persuasion, who was a graded stakes winner as a 2-year-old filly. She dead heated, I believe, in the Schuylerville at Saratoga. That's the 6 furlong race on opening day. I believe she might have been an Asmussen trainee. I'm not sure. But I do know that she was a graded stakes winner as a 2-year-old. And this horse was supposed to be a runner from a very young age, fetched $300,000 at the OBS sale last year, and has had significant enough gate issues to where she's going to have to prove it. I think those 2 horses are underlays in this field. I'm not going to go so far as to use a Mark Capitan term and call them takeout reducers, but I can't bet either of them at their likely prices.
All right. Well, Andrew, I have our tickets here. I will go ahead and go with yours here. Andrew, you have a $40 ticket.
Yep. I'm trying to go through Loved with a lot of my action, trying to beat a couple of short prices along the way, specifically Velociraptor in the second leg. And if we can wind up getting a couple of prices home along the way to extract some value out of Loved to where this pick 4 could potentially pay $200-$300, I'd be more than okay with that.
Yep. And for those of you who are listening, it's 5, 8, 10, 11 with 3, 6, 8, 11 with 6, with 1, 3, 8, 9, 11. Once again, that is a $40 ticket. And, I kind of, like I said, I took it just slightly different from you. We do have a number of horses in common, actually, but we differ in our singles. I'm trying to get around the short prices in that third leg by singling Little Jamie. And so I'm going 4, 5, 8, 10 with 2, 3, 5, 10 with 3 with 1, 3, 4, 9. And that's a $32 ticket. Now, Andrew, if we go 3 by 3 by 2, we got a $9 ticket. And I'm putting up our consensus ticket here. Obviously, we don't see leg 3 the same.
Right.
However, if you're a listener and you just want to toss both of our singles on there, I mean, Andrews is probably a better one than mine, because I mean he's the Oaklawn whisperer, right? I'm just
Oh,
along for
here
the
we
ride.
go.
But
Yeah.
go ahead, Andrew.
So no, I was just going to go on about how people are going to think that I'm inflating my own ego and it's someone else saying all that stuff. I can't win when you're me, really. But what I will say, Josh, is I like your ticket structure here. I think you're in a position to where if your ticket winds up getting home, you have one of those tickets where you have mid prices in all four of those legs. Nothing totally illogical. Like a lot of horses in that 4-1, 5-1, 6-1 range, to where when you look at will pays, you're going, wait, this pays $600, $700. Like there's no
Yeah.
illogical horses in this sequence. And if you're a multi-race player and you have an opinion that goes against a horse that's going to take a fair amount of money, you're licking your chops at that kind of a ticket. I don't agree with your single, obviously, because I singled another runner, but I love the structure of that ticket. And I think you're putting yourself in position to where if your strongest opinion, little Jamie, is right, you're in line for a really big day.
Yeah, I mean, like honestly, like when I look at these tickets, I try and figure out like, all right, how do I hit 4 figures,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think that it puts me in a position, like you said, to hit something that's going to pay 600, 800, maybe even $1,000 if the right horses come in. So,
Right. And
yeah,
I get that. It's just for me, I saw this sequence as okay, how can I draw some value out of Loved, who I think is 9-5 on the morning line and is going to go off shorter than that. I think she's going to be 6-5, 7-5. And if I can turn a 6-5 or 7-5 shot into 4-1, 5-1, I'm okay with that. Because if I was to tell you, hey, you can get Loved for 5-1, you'd play it. You just
yep,
would. And
yep.
that's what I'm going for in this particular sequence. I get the logic behind what you're trying to do, though. So I commend that much. It's just we disagree on the single. But if you want to throw in the opinions that we have, that consensus ticket available on the screen, it's $9. Won't cost you a whole heck of a lot. And we've had a decent amount of success with the consensuses that we've had. There was one cold pick 3 a couple weeks ago that if you played for $1, you got $20 back. So take some of those profits, wheel them back into this consensus pick 4 ticket that we've set up for you.
Yeah, and I just got this up like so 5, 8, 10 in the first leg. We both only liked the 3 in common in the second leg, and I think we both really liked it. So there's nothing really wrong with that. And then if you use both our singles, the 3 and the 6 in the third leg, 1, 3, 9 in the last leg, that's a $9 ticket there. And I'm sure Russ will tell me he's gonna play it. And then he's gonna be like, I can't believe you didn't use this horse or something. I don't know. He he likes to play along, so
We
I'm
love
sure he
our
has some ideas.
listeners and we love them playing along and commenting along seriously. If you've taken the time to listen to our stuff, thank you. We greatly appreciate it. It's a time in horse racing where we're looking for things to be positive about and we're looking for things to have a good time. Can't speak for Josh, but I enjoy doing this show and I like being able to put this stuff together. So it's always a blast, and hopefully you feel the same way listening to and or watching our stuff.
And that's going to do it for us here on Drinking Champagne. Obviously, check us out on ontherwronglead.com, at wrong_lead on Twitter. I am at Cherry Drank. Andrew is at Andrew Champagne. winnersandwhiners.com, andrewchampagne.com. Andrew, there's another website that you're doing stuff for.
There's a couple. Stay tuned to my socials.
All right. But, yeah, good luck, everybody, and let's make some money.